In the immortal words of renowned social philosopher C.W. McCall, was the dark of the moon on the 6th of June in a Kenworth, pulling logs. Cab over Pete with a reefer on, and a Jimmy hauling hogs. We is heading for Bear on I-10, about a mile out of shaky town. I says, "Pigpen, this here's the rubber duck, and I'm about to put the hammer down. So let's put the damn hammer down on a couple of dipshit politicians whose abject, ongoing, out-of-touch inaction is poisoning the air you're breathing right now. And it's costing Australia billions in premature death and illness." Australia has a problem with geriatric trucks, and it's kind of unique. They are poisoning some of us at least. Roads in our major cities are jammed with trucks, many of them old, and it's going to get worse. A lot worse. I'm John Cadogan, the prime mover of discount new cars here at autoexpert.com.au, the place where Aussie new car buyers save thousands on their next new cars without the conventional car dealership S-bend pull through with twist and pike at the dealership, although that can be arranged if you really want. It's a no-cost option. Infrastructure Australia predicts an increase in truck traffic of 50% between 2010 and 2030. In the same time, container traffic across our wharves is expected to increase 150%, and the freight that arrives by air will grow by 110%. You know, if you buy some rubber dog shit from China online or across the counter at Rubber Dogshit Warehouse, whatever, it gets to you by truck. And you can cross out rubber dog shit and write in refrigerator or food or new phone. It all gets to you by truck. Everything is delivered by truck. A shipping container, it lands at the dock. A truck takes it across the city to a logistics warehouse in Shitsville. It's unloaded, and then other trucks take that freight in palletized chunks to a retailer or in a package direct to your door. If you take the trucks away, every supermarket is suddenly just a set for the latest post-apocalyptic blockbuster because trucks deliver everything. But Australia has a real problem which arsehole politicians will not address. In Australia, our trucks are old. It's Zimmer frames and pureed carrots for dinner. Cat food on Saturday night and other special occasions. The average age of heavy trucks in Australia is almost 14 years. That's right, 14. In the USA, the average age is 7 years. Western Europe, Canada and Japan have heavy truck fleets 5 to 9 years old. That's pretty easy to understand, right? In North America, old trucks migrate south to belch out their evil pollutants in their twilight years in Mexico or Colombia, Argentina, whatever. In Western Europe, they go east, ultimately to some shithole ending in Stan. Because we lack a convenient land bridge to a third world shitbox truck infirmary, here's what happens in Australia. Old trucks stop doing long-haul runs in the boonies between capital cities because they're replaced by newer, more efficient trucks for that kind of work. So our cleanest trucks dominate the highways and the wide open spaces. Old trucks in Australia tend to get purchased by the bottom feeders of the trucking world, and in their twilight years they belch their evil, deadly pollution into our cities, picking up and dropping off shipping containers and running palletized loads across town, short-hauling it in our dense population centres. So that's nice. Before 1996, let's call it 2 decades ago, there were no emissions control regulations on heavy trucks in Australia, and 1/3 of the trucks on the road today are in that pre-96 big emission category. I'm not making this up. It's part of a recent report by the South Australian Freight Council. I guess Volkswagen highlighted so vividly the problems of diesel, oxides of nitrogen in the exhaust, deadly gases by any yardstick packed with negative human health consequences, and carbon nanoparticles just the wrong size to enter your lungs. They cause cancer and other life-shortening cardiovascular diseases. Now, I'm not anti-truck. Our lives are immeasurably better as a consequence of the logistics-dependent societies that we live in today. But failure to acknowledge the negative consequences of this arrangement would make me a politician or a lobbyist or an industry bullshitter, and then I'd have to kill myself. So here's the problem. Emissions regulations are not retrospective. Pre-96 trucks never have to comply with stricter, newer laws, and a well-maintained pre-96 truck is emitting about the same amounts of carbon nanoparticles and NOx as 60 equivalent modern trucks conforming to the latest Euro 6 ADR 8003 regulations. These old trucks are a huge environmental and health problem. Personally, I hate the way environment has been hijacked to mean climate change. This issue on the table today is a clear present threat that can be solved if we had the right non-arseholes in Canberra, which we don't. Older trucks are used disproportionately across our most populated cities because Australia. That preschool kindergarten in the outer suburbs on an arterial road, if you drop your kids off in the morning, take a look at the composition of the traffic driving past. Not good. Truck exhaust emissions regulations were first implemented in 1996. This essentially halved the NOx and cut nanoparticles by about 2/3. The regulations were tightened again in 2003, 2008 and 2011, and the latest trucks produce about 1/8 of the NOx and 1/60th of the nanoparticles compared with their unregulated pre-96 descendants. The age of the truck fleet in Australia, the geographic distribution of those old trucks, and the impact of this on human health is a national disgrace. This is an obvious, urgent role for government intervention, okay? And it's simply not forthcoming. And you know, all they would have to do here is give tax breaks to businesses that buy new trucks and trash the pre-96 old ones. It really is that simple. Obviously, that reduces tax revenue to the government, but this would be more than offset by huge windfalls. According to the Trucking Industry Council, if tax incentive changed the composition of the trucking fleet from where it is now, 32% filthy pre-96 models, to just 5%, there would be a $2 billion windfall in avoided healthcare costs, plus $164 million saved in fewer fatalities because newer trucks are safer, and a tidy $500 million saved in CO2 reduction through greater efficiency. And the reason they're not doing that is politicians are arseholes. And the two arseholes I present to you today, personal opinion, are Josh Frydenberg, the Federal Minister for Environment and Energy, and if that's not a portfolio conflict of interest, what is? And Paul Fletcher, the Federal Minister for Urban Infrastructure. This issue should be at the top of these two arseholes' to-do lists, and clearly it's not. Just take a look at the latest news feed from each minister and you'll see, personal opinion, a nauseating compendium of irrelevant bullshit, which moves me to wonder how, in the name of the fake Christian God, either of these, personal opinion, poor excuses for elected representatives could prosecute an argument that their activities actually constitute a public service. Oddly enough, this is something I suspect they'd both be quite adept at. We'll get to that. When you think about it, if you were going to advertise for a Minister for Energy, what qualifications would you require? I'd want someone who could bend their brain around the key concepts, cut through the bullshit. A scientist or an engineer would be ideal. And for urban infrastructure, a leading civil engineer, a town planner, someone like that, surely. Instead, we've got two, personal opinion, arsehole lawyers. Josh Frydenberg is a tennis-playing lawyer whose only real job has been as a banker, insofar as I can tell. An empty suit whose top stories in his latest news feed on the 23rd of May included attending a ceremony to memorialise a footbridge collapse in Israel 20 years ago. A photo opportunity with the Baker's Delight CEO for their Pink Bun campaign, a meeting with Keep Australia Beautiful, a photo op with a sugar company, a photo op with Oz Harvest launching a fund for threatened species and launching a competition to name our new ice-breaking ship, really. This is a news feed completely bereft of the big issues in my view. It's like cutting up the oranges when you should be out there on the field playing the damn game. It's like being a tennis player, lawyer, lunching on the public purse. Paul Fletcher is an economics law graduate with an MBA, a champion debater who wrote a book about broadband internet after being a regulatory fixer for Optus before becoming a politician. A CV far from ideal, in my view, on the core question of tackling the vexed issue of Australia's rooted urban infrastructure. This is a photo of Mr. Fletcher and Mr. Frydenberg with the CEO of Mitsubishi in Australia and the CEO of coal burning specialists AGL. Personal opinion. All of them seemingly weeing in their trousers because AGL, arguably Australia's largest burner of coal, the number one greenhouse emissions source in the nation, all because AGL has bought 32 Outlander PHEV plug-in hybrids. The photo also celebrates, if that's the right word, the launch of the Electric Vehicle Council, another grubby little vested interest lobby group, personal opinion, in Canberra. Just what the nation needs, right? More bullshitters. Mitsubishi CEO Mutsuhiro Oshikiri said AGL Energy's purchase of the new Outlander PHEV further showcases the ongoing commitment AGL has made to reduce its impact on the environment. No, Oshikiri-san, it doesn't. It's a PR stunt that makes absolutely fuck all difference in terms of AGL's environmental accountability. It strikes me as monstrously cynical that one of Australia's largest CO2 emitters would turn the purchase of a few plug-in Mitsubishis into a photo op. Who advises the ministers that it's a great idea to celebrate the establishment of yet another hidden agenda focus group with a token plug-in hybrid purchase? The PHEVs, it's not even strictly speaking an EV. Even worse, why is the mainstream press failing to pull the pants down on this abject cynicism, which is, at best, a preposterously ill-conceived token effort? Here's the news flash, you electric vehicle assholes. EVs are a nice idea that does not add up for the masses. A few EVs lunching off the grid's baseload overnight, knock yourselves out. Good idea. But EVs are woefully inefficient for mass deployment. Unlike the two lawyers, correction, empty suits, I'm an engineer, so I know that a conventional electricity generation turbine is about 40% efficient. High voltage transformer, 90%. A low voltage transformer, about 50%, like the household supply. A short transmission line, about 80%. If you multiply them all out, only 14% of the energy actually gets to the plug. You cannot scale up the infrastructure for some clean, green, or even predominantly EV future without copping these losses on the chin. But I would not expect the Electric Vehicle Council assholes to point this out in Parliament House, and the ministerial bags of hot air won't know because they never studied. Correction, they never studied anything that was relevant to their portfolios, or more broadly, which was a benefit to humanity. Personal opinion. Voltaire famously said, "Each of us is guilty of all the good he fails to do." Pretty neat statement, and a good yardstick, I think, for ministerial effectiveness. On the issues that really matter, energy security for Australia, urban air quality, real infrastructure improvement, deafening silence from Canberra again. Frydenberg and Fletcher, personal opinion, both dead guilty in the court of Voltaire. I'm John Cadogan. Thanks for watching.